Hey guys, I'm going to be talking about my personal code of ethics paper. So to start off with, I was terrified of this assignment. I was like, I don't know, I'm never going to be able to do it. It's so difficult. And I was just like really nervous. But I will say, once I sat down and focused and really started doing it, it brought so much awareness to me and really just excited me about the future and about what I want to do. And it almost just opened my eyes to like seeing the things that I value on paper and seeing how important they are and what they affect and things like that. So it was really, really awesome to be able to do this project and just understand all of that, because all of these thoughts I feel like they run through my head, and it's always a constant like, don't forget to do that, or remember like this is something that's important to you, but this showed me the effect that these things have on my life, not only affect me but affect other people too. So that was really cool, and I really, really enjoyed this. The first ethical perspective I talked about says, I will always use my testimony as a platform to help others. This was my number one, not in any certain order, but I went a lot into my background about this, and just like how I grew up and coming from a single parent home and things like that. This was something I struggled with, especially coming to SAGU. I didn't tell anyone my testimony. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. People just assumed like the way that I looked meant that I like came from a home that was put together and kind of cookie cutter basically, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. And so because of that, I hid from my testimony. I hid from what I actually had come from when I first got here. And then the more I realized that your testimony is a blessing, and whether you grew up in the church your whole entire life or you've been through multiple experiences that no one should ever have to experience as a child, no matter what you've been through, both of those are equally valid. And God has given us these testimonies to use, whether it's good or bad, whether there were struggles or not. God has given them to us so that we can further the kingdom. Something that I learned through my time here at SAGU was that our testimony is so important, and we're supposed to use our testimony to bring people to the Lord. And once I realized that, I promised myself that I would never hide from the person that I am. I would never hide from who I was back then, because that's how I got here now. And something that I mentioned in my paper was that, if we pretend to be perfect all the time, 24/7, without fault, then others that aren't perfect or, pretending to be perfect are going to see that and be like, oh, wow, I'm never going to be able to do what they're doing, or I'm never going to get to that point in my life because I have this struggle, or I have this home life, or this story, like backstory or whatever, And so because of that, I promised to myself that I would always be transparent. I would always be real. And I want people to be able to see, look, this is what I came from and this is where I am now. And I want to use that to encourage them to see that they can do anything and their story is valuable and important. And God has handcrafted each one of us. And no matter our story, we all have a purpose. So that's my number one. Number two, it says, I will understand that my life is not my own and should be treated as a gift. Wow. This is something that absolutely blew my mind. I think about it all the time. And honestly, this wasn't something that I thought about until just a few months ago. I was having a conversation with a friend, and I was really struggling with my purpose. And I came in wanting to broadcast, and that totally got wrecked because I realized that I hated broadcasting. And So I was like, great, now I don't know what I want to do. Like, I thought that was my purpose. I thought that was my calling. And here I am. I have no idea, right? Well, through that struggle, through that craziness of me thinking, what's wrong with me? Am I broken? Does God still love me? Like, why don't I have a calling? Why do all these people have a calling except for me? Through all of that, I realized that God gives us gifts. He gives us talents. He gives us passions. And the reasoning for that is because He wants us to use those. He gives people a voice to sing. He gives people just certain skills so that we can lift His name, right? And so the whole idea of understanding that the life isn't my own is just something that I really value, because it's not my own. And the moment I switch my perspective from living for myself, rather living for God, that's when things changed for me, because I was like, I want to use these talents and these passions to further the kingdom for Jesus Christ, not for me, but for God. And so when I centered my perspective and my purpose around that, it just made so much more sense. And I found myself striving for excellence because it wasn't for myself, but it was for something bigger. My third one was, I will be grateful for each life experience and use it as a learning experience. So something that I learned growing up was that hard times come, and I was very hard on myself as a kid. I would, mess up on a test, or I would tie my shoe incorrectly, or I would blurt out the wrong answer in class, and I would beat myself up about it. And not just that day, but I would carry it over to further days, and I would think about it, and I would just beat myself up and say, are you so stupid? How could you mess that up, or whatever? And through that, I realized that, we're going to mess up. We're not perfect. We're not God. We're humans, and we have faults, right? And so I just decided to, instead of dwelling on those things, instead of being upset that I messed up, I want to instead turn that into, wow, I messed up, but this is how I could have done it better, and this is a learning experience, and I'm going to use that to grow and to just further my knowledge in that area, or whatever it is. My fourth one was, I will commit myself to making my family a priority. In my paper, I talk a lot about family. Family is so important to me. Growing up, it was just me, my mom, and my sister, and so we were really close, and it was just us, and so all we had was each other. My mom, being a single parent, she oftentimes struggled to provide for us, and she wanted us to have everything that we wanted. She didn't want us to go without, and being a single parent, that was kind of hard. But something that I realized through that experience in my life was that although my mom was working overtime to make money, and she was putting in all these crazy hours and trying to make sure that we had what we needed, the times spent together were much more important than any present that I got. Anytime we got to go out to eat, none of that mattered. It all failed in comparison to sitting down and spending time together. And so I promised myself, seeing my mom go through that, I promised myself that no matter how much I'm struggling, no matter what I feel like I need to do, I will always put my family first, because I know that God is a provider. I know that He's going to provide for me. And as long as I'm putting my family first, and as long as I'm loving others around me, God is going to give me that. And no, it's not always going to be easy. Money's not going to fall from the sky. But I know that I have faith in God and that He will provide. My fifth one, and my last one, is I will make sure to uplift others and celebrate their victories. Something that has been really hard for me my whole entire life is celebrating other people. In my home, that didn't happen. It's a very competitive household. I grew up my whole entire life playing sports, and basically it was, if you're not first, you're last. And that was instilled in me at a very young age. And so, you know, if I lost at dodgeball, lost at volleyball, lost at anything, I saw myself as less than the other team or whatever. And even in life, when I would do something wrong, I would get upset with myself and I would condemn myself. Or if I saw someone who was doing better in Spanish class or was could run faster than me, I was never like, oh wow, like that's incredible, they're so great, or, you know, hey, great job. It was always, wow, I wish I could do that. It was an envious, you know, mentality that I held on to, and that tore me apart, because just with being hard on myself, that added to it tenfold. I was also hard on myself, but I also looked at other people and had jealousy in my heart, because I just wanted what they had. I wanted to be that girl. I wanted to be the best. And for me, this idea of only one person could be the best, only one person could show out, was foolish. And so I look back on that, and that's something that I really want to do in my future. Is I want to uplift others in my career. I want to work with people, and I want to be able to celebrate the small victories. I want to be able to shake someone's hand and say, that was something so small, but job well done. You did a great job. No.
No, I'm not taking.
What? Oh, I was filming a video.